going to show you how to break down a deer real quickly in camp for transport home, where you can deal with it when you have all the supplies. I like to hang them, it just makes it easy. Let gravity work with you to pull those meat pieces off. You can see the front shoulders are not attached by a ball, they're actually attached by muscle. If you start to make a cut down along the brisket and just come in behind it, you can follow that shoulder blade and take this off. Sometimes the easiest way to find that blade is to turn it backwards like this, and you can actually come right around it, and you can see the back straps underneath it. You don't want to cut into those. So there's your front shoulder removed. We're just going to put it over here. From there, we're going to come over to the hind. If you use your fingers, you'll find the H-bone. It's right here. We can make a cut here. That's where your back strap starts. It's what separates the hinds from the loins. Being right on that H-bone, you want to be careful on the inside to have removed your tenderloins first, or be very careful when you're making your cuts. In here, we can come right down along the back side of the tenderloins, which I will remove first just to make sure that they stay intact. Just got to clean them up a little bit. You know, there's fat on the tenderloins when you clean up a deer. Leave it on there. When you go to cut it and you clean that stuff off, the tenderloins are nice and moist and clean underneath. All right, inside the cavity here is where the tenderloin is, right along the backbone. There's one on each side. Make sure you don't shortchange yourself. You know, when you field dress it, the diaphragm comes right up to the top edge of the tenderloin. So what you want to do is start making a cut down the backbone. And I use my thumbs a lot here to push out on it. You can see it pulls off that bone real easy. You can get your thumb right in there and just pry it right off. Make sure you go all the way up. That tenderloin comes right up into that hind right here, where it can be removed. And you'll notice that by not using a knife and by using your thumbs more, there's less damage to the tenderloin when it actually comes out. There it is, look at that bad boy. Beautiful venison tenderloin. Once the tenderloin's removed, we can come back to the back strap. We know where our H-bone is. It's solid. You can feel in here, you can start to feel the first rib. That's where you want to get your correct angle for your knife to come down the back strap or loin, or the top loin here is actually called your New York strip. If you were to cut it through the backbone and include the tenderloin on it, it would be a T-bone. So the outdoor edge knife is nice and sharp. You can see we can cut right to the bone. This is just a nice slow process. Don't try to race it or you're going to leave something behind. I like to cut it off the backbone and then pull it off the ribs. Cut it off the backbone, pull down on the ribs. And what you want to do is come all the way down to where the neck starts, and you can cut that off. Beautiful venison backstrap, removed in seconds. Now, one piece of meat that's often overlooked is the neck. You can do a lot with this. Of course, you can make wonderful stew meat, stir fry, but it makes a wonderful neck roast. It's a great piece of meat to braise with liquid. And again, you just want to follow it right down the backbone. And then follow those star-shaped vertebrae around with your knife to take that entire neck piece off. Now the neck does come down a long ways, so don't leave any extra. If you do, don't worry about it. You can always go back and take it for grind. There's a beautiful piece of neck off the deer. Of course, we do have some rib covering here and some brisket that we will also remove. Now, the arrow did go through the front part of this deer, so there is a little bit of damage, but we can trim it up easily like that. Extra grind. Real quickly here, you know, a lot of people ask, what do you do with the ribs? Well, I usually try to clean up the covering of them. Like I said, this one was shot. There is some grind in here. You can see it's pretty lean. But these ribs here, you can actually remove them one at a time. Come right down one edge, flip your knife around, come back down the other. They're not big pieces of meat, don't get me wrong. So when you remove them, they're going to look something like this. People are going to say, why bother? Well, you do them up like short ribs. You take all of these off both sides, put them in the crock pot, add a little bit of beef broth, cook them down. You can add some barbecue sauce, and they're wonderful pieces of little short rib that you end up with. So there's the basics of breaking down the front. You know, getting all these ribs off only takes a matter of seconds, especially with a sharp knife, so you can remove them quickly. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the other side before we cut this off to deal with the hinds to make it more manageable. We're going to split the hinds just to be able to show people how to make the cuts properly. And if you've got it properly cleaned, you have the pelvis here. We're going to cut through the top bone, and then we're going to go to the back of it so that we can follow the backbone and not cut through any of the meat with the saw. So when you have a single hind, we can see the kneecap, we can see the hocks, the shank, and our rounds. Where we're going to start, there's two ways to do this. Here's the knee. What I like to do is come in just under the knee with my knife and cut until you can just feel the bone. Don't stroke your knife across the bone because it dulls it quickly. What you want to do is turn your knife and follow down the edge of the bone, and you can see that it follows the seam. So this is your sirloin tip, and when we follow that seam down, we're going to eventually hit that hip bone down here, and that is your guide for taking this straight off. Now, when you look at the side of this, you can see exactly where your sirloin tip came out. If you draw a line straight down with your knife, this is a prime cut that most hunters miss out. This is the meat inside that dish of the pelvis or the hip on the outside, and that is your top sirloin. So it's an extension of your sirloin tips, and what you want to do is remove it, and here is that hip bone that you can just follow straight out. You can see, get it right down to the bone. You can hear the bone, and just carve it out. Now, your top sirloins are some of your best grilling steaks and a beautiful piece of meat. They're not real big on a deer, but they're certainly worth paying attention to and taking out. Now, here's a neat little trick a butcher showed me. You got your hinds. A lot of people actually separate them off the hock right here, take the whole thing off and then pull them apart. But if you start right here at the knee and just come down the side of the bone, you can actually see where the hock and those rounds join. And you can start to cut that off. And this makes it easy for people to understand the different cuts of meat. We have the outside of this hind. This is your outside round. So as you take this off and separate it, it comes off the leg bone, around the knuckle, all the way down into that hip like the top sirloins, and you can follow it out. So you can see where it separates from the hock at the top, nice and clean cuts between the muscle groups. So take it off like that, and as we get in here, we can see where it comes up against the center round. And you can actually separate some of that with your finger. But like I said, this really helps amateur meat cutters be able to tell what cut of meat they're working on. So we take that off the center round, come around the knuckle, and we're going to take that all the way down and remove the outside round in one piece. Quick, easy, and intuitive in terms of what piece of meat you're dealing with. Again, it's not a race, so I always take my time and work close to the bone so that I don't lose any meat. Of course, this is bouncing around a little bit, so it's not exactly easy. Normally we would have someone help hold it, but there it is. A beautiful outside round off in one piece. Easy to identify because it came off the outside of the quarter. From there, we can go back in here, and you can see that hock muscle. Always remove the glands when you find them. They're usually with a little bit of fat between the muscle groups. So we take that out. And from here, we can take the inside and the center round off. Again, you can feel the different muscle groups. You can pull them apart with your finger. You can see them just like that. And intuitively, as you take it off the bone, we now know that this is our inside round. It's on the inside of the leg, inside of the cavity. This is a quick and easy way to get these off, but it's also a very clean way to do them up. Inside round from there, and your center round is attached and easy to remove. You can actually pull it out with your thumb right there. Center round or eye of round is a wonderful cut of venison, often compared to the tenderloin in terms of tenderness and flavor, so make sure you remove them. And of course, you can clean more of this up for some burger and stuff, but you can take the hocks off here. These are great for braising down. Make a meal out of them themselves. Once they're separated from the rounds, they're easier to identify. And of course, the shank makes great osso buco and other things, so you can follow it around on the bone. A lot of people like to cut the bone off on this, but I never have enough freezer space to freeze bones, so I always take them off. And there you have it. One more shank and we got a deer completely broken down. Took under 15 minutes.